Hello and welcome back. In this next video, we'll be focusing on lighting. For lighting, there are three things you should always seek to master. First is the understanding of lighting, primary light source and shadow. Especially if it's in a daylight exterior, the primary light source is the sun. Always try to create shadow in your foreground and some aspect of the building. Secondly is reflection. Always try as much as you can to have good reflective elements and things to reflect it back, so that your reflections, your glass don't just reflect the horizon directly. And then three is the interplay between light and shadow in your scene. So there should be some light and shading hitting your building. So we can see this view nicely composited by Jerry Kendrick Briggs. You can check out his Instagram for very wonderful inspiration and renders. So this is another view from this same building, and you can see the composition, the lights, the shadows, put on the ground, on the building, and just very neatly organized. So let's go and begin. So the first thing I want to do is to recreate the sun position. In D5, for you to start working on light, let's start with the primary source of light. There are two types of ways to work on light. We have the HDRI and then the normal sun and sky. So I'm just going to follow up with the sun and sky. Now, for you to start working on lighting in D5, there are one setup you need to do. You need to turn off auto. And don't forget, I'm in play mode. So when you turn off auto, come down here, turn off bloom, make sure this is set to 0 so it doesn't interfere with whatever you're doing. You might leave this white balance for now. Make sure nothing is applied around this section. I think it's very important to start from there. If you feel your camera is overly exposed just for the view, we can start at minus 0.1. This is fair. Come back to environment and we're under Geo, sun and sky. I'm just going to set up my sun first of all, then before I go ahead setting up the sky. If we look at the view we are trying to recreate, the sun is hitting the building in some areas, like from this section, because you can see this and you can see this shadow falling, the shadow of this tree falling behind. So the sun is coming somewhere from here and this. So all these other shadows are falling on the building and the foreground, and we can see the reflection somewhere here of the sun. So here doesn't get the sun. So the sun is possibly coming from this top, and you can see these sharp shadows here indicating the sun is hitting both on the rooftop on this section of the building. So let's try and see if we can recreate that. In D5, it's pretty easy. If you move this around, you move your sun around. And if you move this, adjusts the height of the sun. And this will adjust the angle of the sun from the north. So I'm going to set this somewhere around, let's say, anywhere between 11 to 2 p.m. So at an angle, just to get these sharp shadows as indicated here. And we can see the sun falling this way. This section does not have the sunlight. This section has, this section has, this section has. So this is good. Now, like I always advise, once you work on your view, you always need to update the scenery. So that's very important. So whenever you do some settings like this, like adjust the sun position and stuff like that, you always have to update the scenery. This can also be important, some settings around the latitude and longitude before you start doing the North Pole. I'm going to just bring this closer to the equator, like 15 and 8 somewhere where Nigeria is located. Now it has messed up the north offset of my sun, but I can just click and drag till I get it right back to where I want it. Good. So this is almost where I want it. Fine. So this looks good, and I've set out my major source of sunlight. So I'm going to update this view. Now, to create shadows within the foreground, all you need to do is to have to place trees outside of the views. Now, sometimes the trick is this. You may not always have to place the trees on the ground, because take, for example, this particular sun. It's coming at this angle. If I start placing trees on the ground, it might somehow be very difficult for me. So you can, one of the tricks you can do, you can place trees outside of your view, but way above it. So let me give you easiest way to do that in D5. Click on T to go to the top view. And then you can tap on M to go to the materials. Click on model. And because these trees are not showing, I can pick a low poly tree if I want, or pick a high quality tree, whichever one. It's okay to go by. Whichever one you want to go by, that's okay. So I'm going to pick this one. and then I'm just going to place it a little bit outside of my view. Now, I can place two types of trees just to create different shadow types, and this also. Remember in the last video, if you tap V and then you click, you can create a height. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this to vegetation close. Now this might be within my view, but that's not the issue now. I'm going to also raise them a little bit higher than normal. So if you tap F, you go to the front elevation. I clicked to select it. I'm just going to raise them a little bit high this way to be in the path of the sun. And voila, you can see I've come back to my view and I've been able to create some shadows. And now the tree is showing a little bit here, but it still doesn't matter. If I wanted to, alternate V will enable you to orbit. So if I wanted to, I can orbit, and I can move this a little bit this way. I can look at how it's affecting the shading in the building. So something of this nature, and the ground too. So with this, I'm casting shadow in my foreground. I need some shadow somewhere here in the building, somewhere here, parts here. So I'm just going to click this view and see. Fine. So this is beginning to look like the foreground I want to create. I still want more shadows here, so I can still add one more tree in the foreground to make sure that I get that right. So I'll go to the top view and can click, use the shift button, just copy, drag it somewhere here. So scaling these trees also can be done from this place, a little bit up or down, just to get the feel of what we want to create. So if you tap the F button and the Z button, you can get to exactly to the particular tree you are working with and maybe do stuff like this. So I've gotten good foreground shadow in the front. I have some good lighting, and just very simply, if I don't want this tree to show, it's very easy to just select it and move it out. But it showing is also giving it this feel that yes, there is some vegetation to the right, so there is no problem with that at all. So we've sorted the issue of the sunlight. We've also sorted the issue of creating shadows. The next thing is reflection. So for us to handle reflection, the first thing we want to do is to apply materials to the glass. We'll select the speaker here. It's a material picker. The shortcut is I. So I want to select the glass materials here and then apply material to them. So I'll select this material. Under the material template, though we're not working on material, the only thing I'm going to do is just to change it to transparent. So, and then ensure that the roughness is at 0 and fairly specular. I'm going to change the color of the glass a little bit dark. That's all. This is very transparent glass. Mainly my glass is, as you can see, is reflecting the sky. Some part of it are reflecting vegetations that, just popped in a little bit. So, two things. If it's a daylight render, we can start by, applying some curtains just to, create this difference in between the indoor and outdoor that is not too dark. So we can start by applying some curtains, one. And secondly, we can also start by placing trees and buildings opposite it so that we can have some reflections around it. So let's start with curtains. The next thing I want to do is to add vegetations to improve the reflections, just like we have here. So don't forget, these trees I placed here were placed high up. So most of these vegetations that are above, I can select them maybe for want of time and decide that I'll bring them down, down, just somewhere here where the trees will be directly in front of the building, and see how much of reflection we can get. So you can see we have very nice reflections on this surface of the trees. We have a view of the curtains. So in this video, we've been able to sort out the lighting. So one more thing we didn't do, although if we chose to, we could, was to put 1 or 2 light sources inside of the building. So it's an option you might want to explore, but it's not something that is a must. Opposite the view you are working in, but since this is a daylight, I don't always advise it. So opposite the view you are working in, you might decide to just put a light there, light source that reflects on the wall or something, as long as it gets through to the view you are working on. Fine. In D5 you can set the scale of the light, the color of the light, based on the temperature. The intensity of the light can also be reduced or increased. So is this always necessary? No, not in all situations, but if you feel like you need to do it, then you are welcome to. So it's not, for me, it's not something that must be done. There is something I did at the beginning where I touched exposure a little bit and the rest, just to ensure that I'm getting what I want. If at any point in time you feel like you need to adjust this exposure or make it a little bit brighter or something like that, you can easily do that with the numbers here. I turned off the bloom because I didn't want this feeling of bloom. So before we round up with the lighting, exterior daylighting, there is a way to also tweak the skylights in D5render very easily. You can turn on the cloud, and then you can use some of the settings on that cloud. So if you turn it off by default, maybe the cloud might be moving due to the speed. You can turn that off. You can play around with the height of the cloud, raising it up or down. So for me, when you bring it down, it looks a little bit softer. So that's another trick you can use. You can play around with the density on how white or blue you might want it to be. So this interplay here makes it less bluish, like it was looking all through before. So the thickness of the cloud means the amount of cloud that will be there. Basically, we don't want it to be too thick, so we can reduce it as much as we can. In the amount of the cloud, you can see it affects the general amount of the cloud totally. So reducing it down, reduce the clouds, and then bringing it up will increase the cloud. So this has an effect on the rendering. If you look at this, this is how this view is, and this is how this view is. So you can see how the reflection on the glass have changed due to the fact that I worked on the glass. Adjusting your sky can also give you this kind of view feeling, and there are a lot of settings here. If you allow this sky to also cast shadows, if you check it on, it can create some shadows, and rotating the direction of the sky can also adjust how those shadows interact with the building. So reducing the amount of the sky is also something very critical in trying to, let's say, downplay, control every other thing that happens within the sky. So this is just a quick tour on how to play around with the sky and get other feel, so that you don't feel like you're just restricted to this feel. These are 2 different fields of how we can get skylights within our projects. And if I turn this off, also this shadow goes off, and we'll play around with it. This is where we are going to round off this video. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll be looking at application of materials and preparing our works for final rendering. So thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. Peace.